This year, I have more than doubled the number of sales I have made in my business, and here is the number one thing I did to make it possible. Welcome to the Soulful Sales Show, where we talk about believing in the value of your offers, getting them in front of your right people, and selling more of what you do in your unique way. Hi, it is Ruth Poundwhite here, and welcome back to episode 3 of the Soulful Sales podcast. Today, I'm going to share with you the number one thing that I have done that has massively multiplied my sales this year. So a couple of months ago, I was looking at the numbers and I realized that I had been working with, or I had brought into my world, over 400 paying clients in 2023 so far versus less than half of that number in 2022. And there are a few things that I put this down to, and I'm of course going to share more about all of those things in future episodes. But today, I want to talk about the number one thing that I think made the difference, and that was setting the intention to sell more. And I know, it sounds all very nice, but does it really work? I hope that by the end of this episode, you are going to see just how much of a tangible impact making a powerful intention and decision really does have on your sales. And more than just an intention, by the way, it's about using the intention and decision I made as a guide to the actions that I took, being willing to repeat my launches, to reuse content, sometimes within just a few months of a past launch, and perfecting my sales process. So that's a little sneak peek of future stuff that I'll be talking about in terms of the actions that my intention led to. So let's back up to the end of 2022. I was closing down my biggest selling program in terms of the income that it brought in. That was my group program, Rest and Rise. Now, I was serving incredible clients in that program. In some ways, I had really hit my stride with the group coaching model, but I had an intuitive nudge that it wasn't the direction I wanted to take my business in 2023. It was a really difficult decision, but I trusted that it was the right decision. And just bear in mind, at this stage in my business, I wasn't closing that offer because I knew I had a better offer to sell or anything like that. I had nothing specific to replace it with, no high ticket group program in mind. But I did know that I wanted to make more sales of stuff that I already had. So at this point in my business, I had created several courses which I could do live rounds for or could equally work just as well as self-study courses. So although I didn't have like a higher ticket group program that I was going to replace the other one with, I did know that I had options for selling more of what I'd already created. And I knew that I would still do higher energy launches every now and then, things like running challenges and stuff, because that's an important part of how I connect with my people. But I also knew that in between those high energy launches, I really wanted to commit to making it easier for myself by selling more in a very laid back, low energy way and potentially doing launches pretty much back to back. So selling back to back might bring up feelings. I know when I talk to my clients about this or in my groups about this, it definitely brings up feelings. And we will have a whole podcast episode coming up about that later on. And I did touch on some of the feeling stuff back in episode 2 as well. So go listen to that if you haven't already. But what I really want to get at today is the power of that decision I made. My intention was to sell more of what I already had. And the decision in alignment with that was always knowing what I was selling and allowing myself to sell more offers more frequently and to repurpose content to make it all easier. So at this point, I just want to invite you to quickly check in with yourself, because often it's really easy to think on the surface that I am being intentional about this already. I already know what I'm selling and how often I'm selling it. But when we actually pause and we are radically honest with ourselves, we might realize that we're actually only giving our offers a mention here and there. We're not talking about them wholeheartedly. Or maybe we've got ongoing offers that we're only talking about for a week and then we never talk about again. Or maybe you are winging it month to month, week to week, maybe even day by day, not knowing what you're selling until you make a last minute decision about it. So I just want you to check in. If you believe that selling could be simple, and I do think that's an important part of the question, Do you think you could be selling more than you are right now? And how intentional are you being about knowing what it is that you're selling, or are you just winging it? And I really want you to be kind to yourself when you check in and answer this question, because we could always be doing better, right? But just be really, really honest with yourself. And what I really want you to come away from this episode knowing and trusting is that when you set the intention to sell more, and when you are more intentional about knowing what it is that you are selling, when you are selling it, you will sell more. Now, I could actually rephrase that a bit to, when you set the intention to sell more and you act in alignment with that intention, you will sell more. Now, I know it sounds very simple, maybe even too good to be true, but I have seen this play out time and time again in myself and my clients. So just as an example, in my membership, the Soulful Sales Society, we run a monthly Sell Every Day challenge for 5 days. It's a very simple on the surface challenge. It's only 5 days, and you just have to sell in any way that you want to sell at least once a day for those 5 days, right? Pretty simple. But so many people get in their head about what selling every day even means, how much effort it's going to take them, how it might be annoying to people. Is it even going to work? And what I see is that some people do make more sales right away from being intentional and selling every day. Some people don't, and that's okay. But what I see is that when people actually set that intention to sell more and to sell every day, it changes everything about how they show up. They more easily spot opportunities to sell where their mind would have told them that they can't possibly think of any more ways to sell. They see things like drop in front of them, like really, really easy and, low-hanging fruit opportunities to sell more of what they do and talk about what they do more. And they flex that selling muscle and they see firsthand how much easier it gets to be to sell more often. And when we focus on that side of it, that benefit of setting the intention, rather than the short-term desperate need to have the transaction happen right now, when we can zoom out and look at the bigger picture of what that intention is doing for us, it makes all the difference to our longer term sales success. Now, obviously, like I've said earlier in this episode, there are more practical steps that I've taken to sell more this year, and I'm going to cover them in future episodes. But I wanted to start with this, the most important intention, to invite you to be radically honest with yourself about whether you're being as intentional as you could be with your selling, and to invite you to make that decision right now to sell more, because it can massively shift the number of sales you are going to make going forward. And don't forget, this is about so much more than sales. It's about creating the life for yourself and your family that you want. It's about making a difference and making an impact on more people by selling more of what you do. So set that intention today. Ask yourself, how can I act in alignment with that intention? And please do let me know how it goes. I am on Instagram at Ruth Poundwhite, or if you're in my Facebook group, come and tell me. How does it change things when you are intentional and you make that decision to sell more? Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Soulful Sales. If you have a moment to rate and review, know that it really does make a difference. And if you'd like to carry on the conversation, then you can connect with me on Instagram at Ruth Poundwhite, sign up to my newsletter at ruthpoundwhite.com/newsletter, or my personal favorite, join me inside the low ticket membership at ruthpoundwhite.com/membership. And keep doing what you're doing, because your work really does matter.